Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today is JAE Lee Day, so we're looking at his last issue of the Savage Namor the Submariner from the early 90s. This is specifically issue 38, May 1993. So, not much to say about the cover. Nice big headshot, kind of a 90s staple type design. I guess when you're on a deadline, you just want to get through the getting the cover done real quick. Looks pretty cool, using all the old JAE Lee tricks, the textures, the dark shadows, the white ink, right? And, you know, just the overall level of kind of kinetic electric energy that we get, which is, you know, still a pretty cool cover. I think it's still pretty eye-catching. But that's, let's crack her open right away and have a look inside. And I'm going to point out with the credits what's most interesting about this issue. Love this shot here. Again, very Simon Bisley, Frank Frazetta inspiration for sure. We've got our alien type ladies here, you know, all the JAE Lee staples. And then you turn the page, and looking at the credits, Shadows of Ancient Evils, A Tale of the Man Called Namor. Bob Harris is the writer. JAE Lee is only the penciler here. Now, this is what's interesting. Bill Sienkiewicz, Sean McManus, I don't know, you tell me. Chris Ivey, Malcolm Jones, and Jimmy Palmiotti. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different inkers, count them. And what's surprising about this issue is if you had not told me and I hadn't known that there were other inkers on this, I could have probably believed that JAE Lee inked this whole issue. So surprisingly enough, where I figured a lot of the work with JAE Lee might be done in the inks, I guess it seems like he's a pretty damn tight penciler as well, because the look, even though there's 5 different inkers in this comic, is surprisingly consistent. Still got those great you know, designed rooms and architecture and drapery and stuff that he's known for. Still doing all the splatter and stuff. And again, like it's just, you know, there's some different inkers here. Bill Sienkiewicz doesn't ink anything like Sean McManus and Chris Ivey. You know, Jimmy Palmiotti has his own style. So, you know, I don't know how they got that level of consistency here, other than the fact that JAE Lee's pencils were probably really darn tight. And well indicated, either, you know, shading in the blacks or putting those little X's or whatever it is. This is an odd choice here on JAE Lee stuff, so I don't know who decided on that, but, you know, as I go through it, you'll see this is, you know, all the JAE Lee stuff is there. The silhouettes, right? You'll get lots of full silhouettes all the way throughout. The alien vampire ladies. The great evocative kind of Dungeons and Dragons backgrounds that he's been doing. They're underwater still, so unfortunately not using the bubbles all over the place. Am I wrong on that they're underwater? Pretty sure they are. So we get a new shot of the new look for Namor, which I feel like has already kind of changed from last issue and gotten even more extreme than what we saw on that last splash page, which is hilarious. The wings have gotten, it seems, bigger on the ankles here. Again, I always thought that's a weird design choice on Namor, but, you know, you're kind of stuck with it. That's how he was originally designed. Straight up silhouette page that probably took half an hour, you know. Still works really well, though. Like I said, the fact that he doesn't do it all the time makes it so that when he does, he can get away with it, right? No backgrounds, bit of splatter, full-on silhouette, and boom, move on to the next page, you know? Got a whole silhouette panel here as well. Now, here's a page where the inking tends to get just a little bit rougher than usual. So this is a page, like, for example, that I would assume maybe Sienkiewicz is inking. You know, you get a bit more of the kind of textures he will kind of use. Still some leftovers from the Neil Adams kind of stuff he was doing early on. I still think it works really well over JAE Lee, but that might be the only indication throughout this whole thing of you know, another inker. And sometimes I'm perplexed because this looks very JAE Lee, as do these panels down here, right? All the aesthetic and everything. But then on this one here, there's a bit of hatching here that looks almost kind of like Jim Lee West Coast in a weird way. So that might be, you know, one of those other inkers, obviously. But so consistent. Again, like, this is exactly, you know, the same kind of look and shadows and hatching that he's been using all throughout, you know, at least this later part of his Namor run. You know, he kind of, in around issues 31 or 32, really kind of solidified his style. And he was able to ink himself, too. Here's another page where I find just the textures a little bit more worked over, excuse me, than JAE Lee usually would. So I assume this might be one of those pages that was inked by someone else. But man, I'm just amazed at the level of quality of JAE LEE'S art that 5 different inkers can work on top, and there's not really much of an aesthetic change. I am noticing a serious lack of backgrounds, though, on these last few pages. Oh, we're back underwater. Okay, so let's give us some bubbles. But art-wise, again, like this to me should always have been maybe in, I've mentioned it before, in like Heavy Metal magazine. That's where JAE LEE belongs. That's the kind of stuff I feel like he's going for here. He's taken Namor as a kind of a cipher for, you know, fantasy, sword and sorcery kind of stuff, right? And again, I mean, I mentioned it last time, the look of Namor, this new look is to me even more like Jason Momoa than Aquaman. Here's some interesting pages because, you know, I'm used to the silhouette and just occasionally kind of using a white contour or something to cut through the shapes. But here to kind of use it as muscle definition and sinew and stuff, I find is pretty cool, actually pretty interesting. You know, so I'm thinking some of it was drawn in and then some of it was white medium, you know, at the end coming back in. And again, I know I've mentioned this, this stuff is probably drawn really fast, you know, and done really quickly, but I still think it makes it, that's what makes it energetic and move off the page and be so electric and radiant. Like some of these silhouettes, you know, like I said, sometimes it feels like he's cutting down on page time and taking the easy way out real quick, like something maybe like this. Still giving you little details that are fun with the bubbles and stuff, but then like you get a really, you know, I would say this is a pretty intricate bunch of silhouettes stuck together, and it works and it's clear, and you know, a few lines for the movement and stuff. I really like this use of silhouettes in this panel here. I think that's really clever and looks aesthetically pleasing as well. And I mean, soak it in, because these are the last few pages we're going to get, last 3 pages, actually, of JAE LEE on Namor. Next issue I've seen, they have an artist that's kind of reminiscent, of course, of the JAE LEE kind of style, but then it starts going in another direction. And kind of what JAE LEE has established here in that magic goes away, that dark JAE LEE magic. And he leaves us on the last page with a pretty cool background shot of this kind of squid-like castle, you know, Castle Grayskull, and a giant undersea squid had a child, and that's what popped up here. Pretty darn cool. Again, there's a side of this art that, although not directly linked to He-Man, just like the sword and sorcery stuff to me, is almost like with JAE LEE'S art. Namor for this run was basically a cooler, darker 90s He-Man. So going over these again, you know, having seen the issues as a kid real quick, but going over them again, it evokes all that kind of cool stuff from when I was a kid. And that's where we're going to end it today with the Savage Namor the Submariner 38's review. So if you are still subscribed, guys, and you are watching the channel and all the videos, thank you so much. I really appreciate your loyalty and you sticking around. If you're watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. It only takes a quick second, and it helps the channel grow, helps get us out there to other people who are into comic books just like we are. So everyone out there, thank you so much and have an awesome day. King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby. Like!